48 hours. This is the time period from when the United States officially redesignated the Houthis from the good boys list over to the terror list. And within a 48-hour period of this happening officially, massive and significant escalation of force has occurred within the Middle East. You have the United States conducting more defensive strikes over Yemeni territory, taking out significant Houthi targets. You have 2 Iranian spy ships lurking in the Red Sea and have been verified to be forward operating bases for Iran. You have the Houthis conducting legitimate successful launches from Yemen and hitting and taking out civilian vessels. And you have an MQ-9 Reaper drone belonging to the United States falling out of the sky, and the Houthis are claiming they have taken it out of the sky and it has landed on Yemeni territory. So stick with me in this video because it looks like Iranian-backed militant groups have really found an Achilles heel to the US military. Don't necessarily go after the US military directly, go after the allies of the United States. But we'll get into all of that. Let's go ahead and figure out what exactly is happening. Okay, so first things first, one of the most important things you need to understand right now for the mission of the US military is that they can expect a total escalation of force, and it's kind of already happening. This is because the United States or Biden administration has decided to redesignate the Houthis from the okay list to the terror list, and they had no choice. By definition, the way that the Houthis are acting, they deserve to be on this list. But the reason why this is semi-complicated is because the Biden administration had initially removed the Houthis from this bad boys list so that the United States could help with the devastating humanitarian efforts within the country of Yemen. Based off of US law, you cannot help or work with an area that is sanctioned, and the Houthis were sanctioned because they were officially on this bad guys list, but now that they were off, the United States was able to help. But now that the Houthis are back on the list, the United States finds themselves in a position where they were like, we either don't go after the Houthis or we go after the Houthis, and at this point in time, it looks like full force go after the Houthis. And I promise we will get to the drone falling from the sky and the 2 Iranian spy ships, but you need to understand that the Biden administration has put provisions in place to actually help the people of Yemen. So they are fully aware of what's going on in the country of Yemen, but they have decided that, you know what, it doesn't matter. We have to go after the Houthis, and we have to use the full power of the US military and the US government to come together and go after the Houthis collectively. Now, the Houthis have already responded to this verbally, but literally, so let me explain this. First and foremost, the Houthis are not happy about this, and they see this really as a cause and effect. If you're going to put us on this terror list, well, we're going to act like it. And the Houthis have started to launch more strikes, and they have started to show more signs of being willing and able to go after civilian vessels, not even going after military warships, going after the allies of the United States, and really anything that could affect the West within the Houthis' lens or eyes. And what I mean by that is possibly going after world trade or trying to disrupt cargo ship lanes and things like that. Now, before we talk about the literal strikes that the Houthis have already conducted within a 48-hour time frame, you need to understand they have a little help from their friends. First things first, it has been verified that Iran has boots on the ground within Yemen, coordinating strikes and assisting the Houthis. This would be no different than the United States sending like Special Forces 5th Group or other advisors to help local militant groups who are in favor of the United States. The exact same thing is happening right now over Yemen to advise the Houthis. However, there is more to the story because these Iranian advisors have a little help actually in the Red Sea. 2 ships that always seem to be lurking in the area whenever the Houthis launch a significant strike, known as the Bashad and the Shimam. In fact, I even found a live global tracker to show you that they are currently, at the time of me making this video, lurking in the Red Sea, but more specifically near the region of Djibouti, where the United States has significant trade in that area, but more important, there is a big military base there where it's not uncommon for U.S. naval ships to, resupply their ships or to have some active movement in the area. Nonetheless, the Pentagon has already acknowledged they are well aware that these two ships, they seem to be in the region whenever the Houthis launch an attack, and it's not by coincidence. The U.S. military has already acknowledged these are spy ships and everyone knows it. And what's also really interesting is it's not only the U.S. military, but it's also vigilantes or underground watchdog groups who are constantly watching these ships, and you can go through a deep dive of every time the Houthis attack, these ships seem to be in the area. And we can do a 1-hour video talking about the entire history of these two ships. These are two Iranian-backed ships who also always seem to have militant vessels surrounding them or protecting them. Nonetheless, just understand that the Iranian advisors in Yemen, they're getting some help or intelligence from these two ships. Things like maybe the weather conditions are okay, or maybe even telling, hey, don't launch yet. We can tell that the conditions are not correct. Now, I'm sure a lot of you are screaming, why not just go after these ships if everyone knows that these two ships are helping with the coordinated attacks? And we'll get to that in a second. But the thing is this, the United States had recently actually attacked these ships, but it was done through a cyber attack. Now, the United States had leaked that they did that. It looks like they wanted the world to know, but Iran has not responded. Iran, the only thing they have responded about these ships when the Pentagon initially put them on blast and let the public know that we are watching them, Iran said don't even touch them, don't look at them, because this could be means for war. However, it looks like the country of Iran may have fallen for their own bluff, because it does look like a cyber attack actually did occur on these two ships, which apparently was greenlit by Joe Biden himself. Now, let's talk about operations and attacks and retaliations that are currently happening. First things first, the United States military threw the first punch from the time of redesignating the Houthis on the bad boys list. This is straight from Central Command. This was on February 17th. Central Command successfully conducted 5 self-defense strikes against 3 mobile anti-ship cruise missiles, 1 unmanned underwater vessel, and 1 unmanned surface vessel in Iranian-backed Houthi-controlled areas of Yemen. This is the first observed Houthi employment of a UUV since attacks began on October 23rd. Now, actually locating and finding an unmanned underwater vehicle is a massive deal, because if the Houthis have any chance whatsoever of getting a surprise strike in, or something that could initially touch or strike the US Navy, it would be one of those vessels. And the thing that might be a little shocking to those hearing this, you need to understand that the Houthis are very well versed in combat, and they have significant funding from their cash cow, Iran. So when analyzing all of this, it does look like Central Command is really looking for important targets and not just going after random targets throughout Yemen. These significant strikes of these 60 strikes through the day or 30 strikes through the day, that is rather significant for the Houthis, but specifically going after individual targets that mean a lot to the Houthis, such as an unmanned vehicle, that's a big deal for Central Command. However, for every cause there is an effect, and because of this, the Houthis are going to strike back, and they did, in 2 separate ways. First things first, let us talk about the strike they did on a civilian ship, and then we will talk about the MQ-9 Reaper drone that the Houthis are claiming they shot out of the sky. February 18th, 2 anti-ship ballistic missiles were launched from Iranian-backed Houthi areas towards the MV Rubmar, a Belize-flagged UK-owned bulk carrier. One of the missiles struck the vessel, causing damage. The ship issued a distress call, and a coalition warship along with another merchant vessel responded to the call to assist the crew of the MV Rubmar, and the crew was transported to a nearby port by the merchant vessel. So you can see that the Houthis have absolutely zero problem going after civilian ships. Now, I want to show you a graph so you can understand how many ships are in the area. It's not like an isolated ship just floating around in the Red Sea. Now, one thing you need to understand when analyzing these reports is that the Houthis seem to go after very specific targets as far as who owns the ships. And a lot of this data is public. You can actually click on ships throughout the world and you'll be able to know where they come from. But nonetheless, the Houthis seem to go after British ships, US ships, or any sort of ally that is really close to the two nations. Because again, when you look at how many ships are in the region, it's not like the Houthis couldn't just launch a mass attack and go after everyone. That wouldn't necessarily be beneficial for the Houthis, and Iran is close enough to know that they actually have some allies who would back the Houthis and are friends with Iran, so they don't want to piss off their own allies. But here's what the issue is. How far can the Houthis go? And this is where the escalation of force is going to happen. How far can the Houthis go before they actually sink a ship, or even worse, take out the personnel on the ship? Because again, based off this report, they were able to significantly damage this ship to where it had to be transported to a nearby port. And you have to understand, if the Houthis manage to get the right ship, they could start to disrupt or cause an issue for world trade, and because of that, that is totally means for war. And if there's one thing that's rather consistent about this current US military, is that they are willing to wait until the worst possible situation to actually retaliate. And the reference I'm talking about are the soldiers who passed away from the one-way drone attack that happened over Jordan. You have to understand, there were over about 150 attacks before the ultimate worst case scenario happened, and then that's when the US military attacked back. So it looks like the United States is trying to at least deter or eliminate the possibility for this to happen, but nonetheless, the Houthis are still able to launch more and more attacks. And again, like we had talked about before, as long as the Houthis can make the US military look bad and delegitimize the operations going on in the area, it doesn't look like the US Navy was able to actually stop this attack. And if the US Navy is promising to try and contain the Houthis in Yemen and they're not doing it, again, Iran and the Houthis, they are winning the fight and making the US military look bad. Even though from most perspective, we understand that the US military can't contain them 100%, but nonetheless, in the Middle East with disinformation and the way that the Houthis are telling the story, it does make the US look bad. And just to give you more evidence about this, the Houthis are claiming to have taken out their second MQ-9 Reaper drone over Yemeni territory. In fact, we even have a statement from a spokesperson. Yemeni armed forces will not hesitate to take out more military measures and carry out more qualitative operations against all hostile targets in defense of beloved Yemen. Now again, I do want to point out that the Pentagon has not publicly said that the Houthis have shot down this drone. The Pentagon is saying they are under an investigation and trying to figure out what has happened. So understand, if you are watching this video and it has come out publicly that it was shot down, I filmed these, a few hours ahead of time. So right now, you need to understand that this is not out of the capabilities or outside the scope of Houthi capability to take out an MQ-9 Reaper drone. So it wouldn't be out of the norm for this to be an accurate story. Now, what does this mean if the Houthis were actually able to take down this drone and they are telling the truth? Well, really nothing, because by design, this is what drones are all about. You don't want your drone to be shot out of the sky, but it does allow for you not to start a war because you didn't take out an actual human being. That always seems to be where the escalation of force happens, taking a real life versus not taking real life. If anything, once again, this could delegitimize US military operations in the region, because the Houthis can say, look, we took out the second drone of the United States, the almighty United States, and not only that, these drones cost $60 million. That's $60 million lost to the West. So again, this has all happened within a 48-hour time frame. The Iranian ships lurking in the Red Sea, defensive measures coming from the United States, offensive measures coming out of Yemen from the Houthis. A lot is happening, but more is going to come. Now again, the main thing I want you to focus on is it does look like Iran has told their militant groups that you need to start delegitimizing the United States. And I'm fully going based off of the evidence where the United States has not been attacked recently, which is a good thing, but it's also a very complex situation for the United States to be in. I mean, we can all agree that the United States not getting attacked is a good thing, but it's not a great thing when the countries that are hosting the United States are falling apart due to militant groups getting in their own little fights with US allies. And this has always been a major problem, especially in the country of Syria, but more specifically in the country of Iraq. The United States was actually threatened to get kicked out. Now, it does look like this has all been resolved, but again, there has been a very, very eerie feeling of peace, and militant groups have not been going after the US military at the time of making this video for the past several days. So we shall see what happens, but you don't have to be an expert to realize that things are going to get worse. especially that within a 48-hour time frame so much has happened, and we do now have verifiable facts that there are Iranian boots on the ground in Yemen. That could totally change everything for how the United States has to operate against Houthi targets, because I don't think the United States wants to hit these advisors backed by Iran or actual Iranians. This would only stir the pot more, and again, when you analyze what the United States is attacking or who the United States is attacking, it's usually like rail systems or these unmanned vehicles or trucks, any sort of logistics that back the Houthis. That is who the United States seems to be going after right now. Again, it doesn't look like the United States wants to take the risk of collateral damage when already there's a massive humanitarian crisis in the country of Yemen. And as far as the rest of the Middle East, the United States does look like they're always trying to lay low, but Iranian-backed militant groups are just not allowing for the United States to get a break. This is the first time since October 7th in a long time where the US military has sort of been in an era of peace, if you will. So that's currently what's going on. Make sure you guys leave your comments and opinions down below. I'm really curious to see what you guys all have to say, and we'll see you guys later.